My name is Peter Fernandez. I'm the head of AdMob for Latin America. We are a mobile advertising network that was acquired by Google within the past year. And I'm here to talk a little bit about how you can make money with mobile applications using mobile advertising. I'm going to talk about things like different business models you can use, including advertising and other models as well, how you can build an audience, and of course what everyone always wants to know, which is how much money can you actually expect to make. So before I get started, I actually just wanted to ask, just so I understand who's in the audience, how many people here are actually currently have a mobile app or are planning on developing one? Show of hands. Oh, good amount. Great, awesome. We love you guys. So then I'll just jump right into it. Starting at the very highest level, as I'm sure you've all heard, the mobile internet is obviously kind of a big deal. Gartner is projecting that over 1 billion mobile devices will be accessing the internet by 2013. I've seen plenty of other projections saying that mobile devices are going to be bigger than regular PC internet for accessing the internet within the next 5 or so years. And then Nielsen is projecting that smartphones are going to overtake what we call feature phones, which are your more basic WAP phones, by Q4 of 2011. That's the end of next year. So things are changing very rapidly, and that's evidenced by certain things like, for example, the amount of money that is actually being transacted through mobile nowadays. You may have heard that last year eBay did $600 million worth of sales through mobile applications. So these are becoming a very viable model of commerce. And of course, this one survey we're quoting here at the bottom found that 80% of brands and advertisers are planning on boosting their mobile budgets in the coming years. So it's something that people who advertise, people who want to reach users are thinking about investing in. And that means that if you can build an audience of mobile users, you have a market, you have something you can sell to advertisers, and that's a great way to build a business. Specifically in Brazil, so that you guys can understand sort of the local context, mobile internet is exploding. This is a picture of our network. And these are ad requests. So you can think of these as page views. Every time there's a page view, there is also an ad request for an ad to be shown. That's what's being measured here. As you can see, over the past year, the network has grown about 800%. I mean, it's staggering. We now have about 220 million page views per month. If you compare that to large internet portals, I mean, that's what a large internet portal has. So mobile is already getting to the scale of PC on certain measures. In other words, there's a massive audience. And the reason we have Android and iPhone pulled out separately from WAP devices is because the behavior on those devices is fundamentally different. Those right now are the primary devices that have full-featured internet browsers. And so what you see is the number of page views per device per day is just staggeringly higher than on WAP devices. On WAP devices, you'll get someone using the mobile internet, they'll do maybe 10 to 15 page views. On Android, it'll be like 60 to 100. So it's just a completely, Android and iPhone, completely different ballgame. And of course, other manufacturers are building other phones which are beginning to show behavior like that as well. But right now, the predominant models that show that behavior are Android and iPhone. Again, in Brazil, in terms of unique users, just so you can get a sense of how many people in Brazil are actually currently using these devices, you can see also growing extremely fast. Only 4 months ago, in June 2010, there were about 450,000 users total of Android plus iPhone plus iPod Touch plus iPad. Just in September, it's basically almost doubled to 810,000. And very interestingly, you can see the blue bar just got bigger than the red bar this past month. There are actually now more Android devices in Brazil than iPhones, which is a pretty interesting thing to look at. One other thing to note is that iPad is actually, although it still looks very small, it's actually growing very, very, very quickly. So it's an interesting platform to pay attention to. So what we do is we allow you, if you are able to build an audience among users of these devices, to serve advertisements to those users. So these are, an Android app and an iPhone app, and in the yellow circles, those are some of the ads that you might get if you signed up as an AdMob publisher. Basically, what you do is you designate certain portions of your app as places where you would like to show users ads, And then we go around and talk to advertisers and sell that inventory to them, and basically we do all the ad sales for you. So you basically just turn us on and start making money. As far as apps go, we have SDKs for iPhone, iPad, Android, and also Palm Web OS. And we have a variety of ad units, which I'll show you some pictures of soon. And of course, we have very good tracking and analytics tools to keep track of how well you're doing. Advertising is just one piece of a business model if you're an app developer. There's a lot of different ways you can go. So one thing we see a lot of is app developers having a free version and a paid version. And what they'll do is they'll try to get a big audience with their free version and then ask people to upgrade to get extra features to a paid version. So in other words, you love this game that I've developed, you really want levels 5 through 10, upgrade to the paid version. And that's a good model for once you've built trust with your users, once the user values your app. So that's one way that you can create revenues, is by having that paid version for people to upgrade to. The second one is in-app purchases, which is very similar. This would be something like, if it was a game, for example, offering extra weapons or extra avatars, that sort of thing. $1 for a level pack, that kind of thing. Also a revenue stream. You could just have a free app and serve advertising in it. And that's obviously something that we see a lot in our network. And then you can do pretty much any combination of those three things. The point that I wanted to make with this slide is, no matter what you want to do, advertising serves as a solid base of revenue that is basically quite reliable. Our ad network is very built out, and there's a lot of demand for advertising on mobile devices. So if you can build that audience, that revenue will always be there. And then you can build even more business on top of that with paid downloads and with in-app purchases. Advertising is just a good baseline. One thing I would recommend, however, is, and I recommend this all the time actually, is if you can have a free version of your app, you really should. We see conversion rates on free apps that are over 10 times higher than paid apps. It's just something that if you're in an app store and there's 200,000 apps and one is free and one is paid, which one are you going to pick? However, if you've been using a free one for a while, you really value it, you really like it, then you're going to be more willing to pay for a paid app. So even if you have a paid app, if you can give away a free version to get people into it, I highly recommend that. So on the advertising piece of those business models, the way that AdMob works is really very easy. We have a series of SDKs available on our website, and I'll give you guys the links to those later. You basically download some libraries and install them in your app. It takes most app developers about 2 hours to say, this is where I want my apps and install this is where I want my ads, and install all of the code. And we start to show ads in your app. Generally, every time a user clicks on one of those ads, you get paid. So, and then that's the CPC model. That's when advertisers are paying for clicks. There's also a CPM model, which is when advertisers are paying for impressions. So basically, every time an ad shows, whether the user clicks on it or not, you also get paid. You can place these banners anywhere in your app. You can have them on menu pages. You can have them anywhere within the actual content of the app. You can have them on instruction pages. What you should think about if you're going to build an app that is going to be ad supported is building the app in such a way that it optimizes the user experience, because you don't want to alienate users by having too many ads or ads in annoying places like in the middle of the screen or next to buttons that they're trying to use for functionality so they accidentally click on the ad. You don't want to have any of that stuff, because then you'll end up losing users. So you want to optimize for both user experience as well as revenue potential. So things like having it on the menu screen, that's a good place to have an ad, because that's when a user is paying a lot of attention and is not distracted by any content that your app might have. Some examples of ad units that we serve, ad types that you might receive as an AdMob publisher are, for example, click to call. So an advertiser might want the user to call in order to sell them something. This would be this ad unit, when you click on it, it actually initiates a call on the phone. Obviously, clicking to mobile landing pages is a very common functionality for mobile advertisements. This is another thing you might see. And then we also have a new series of advertisements called interstitials. These are extremely high-paying advertisements, which what they do is when someone turns on your app, a full-screen ad will actually come up, and fill the screen, and it's animated. It's an interactive experience. You can't really see it in this slide, but in this advertisement on the right, you can click on the clouds, move them around, a rainbow comes out. If you touch a cloud again, a little skunk comes out. It's fun and entertaining, and most importantly, it doesn't take anyone out of your app. You can see there's a little X mark at the top left there. At any moment, if the user gets annoyed, they can click on the X and they're right back in your app, but you still get paid for that impression. So this is one of the examples of the innovative ad units that we have, that we're always coming out with new ones to try to make sure that our publishers are getting paid as much as possible. So everyone always wants to know how much they can make. It really, really, really depends. Every app is completely different. And so what I always try to do is give people an idea of how to think about it so they can figure it out for themselves. So what you need to think about is, what is the value of one of my users and how many users do I have? And so I'm going to walk through an example of how you might evaluate that for your own app. The first thing you need to know is how to define ECPM. ECPM is a measure of how much money you're actually making from serving ads. And it measures how much money you make when you serve 1,000 ads. So this is a simplified calculation, just using easy numbers to make it easy to understand how this works. In reality, these obviously vary very widely. But let's say you serve 1,000 ads to your users. If the ads have a click-through rate of 1.5%, meaning 1.5% of the time when an ad shows, someone clicks on it, then you've gotten 15 clicks. If the advertisers who are buying those clicks are offering to pay 10 cents per click, that's what CPC stands for, cost per click, well then 15 times 10 is $1.50. In other words, if you serve 1,000 ads, in this example, you will have made $1.50. So now you understand what ECPM is. This will make a little more sense. This is a calculation of the value of one free customer, meaning a customer who downloaded your free app. On the left side, let's say you have your average user uses your app 20 times. And let's say that the way you have your app set up, on average, in one use session, a user sees 5 ads. Well, that means that each user, on average, that you get is going to see approximately 100 ads. If your ECPM is $1.50, well then overall, your average value per user is 15 cents. And that's just from showing ads. The average value per user is 15 cents. On the right side, this is saying how much can you make if you are also selling a paid version to your free users. So let's assume that people are using your free app and you have ads running in your own app saying, hey, upgrade to the paid version to get all of this great extra feature and functionality. Let's say 5% of your users upgrade to that paid app. Let's say the price of the paid app is $2.99. Then that's another 15 cents average value per user. In other words, your average total value per user is going to be 15 plus 15 equals 30 cents. So now if you know the value of a user, then it's all just about how many users you can get. So obviously the goal is get as many users as possible and you'll make more money. And try to increase the value of your users. So this has to do with showing more ads, obviously, as well as coming up with compelling offerings, such as good in-app purchases, a good paid app to upgrade to, and so on and so forth. To give you an idea, one thing you might want to think about if you're thinking about types of apps to develop is how many page views does your app drive? We see social apps, for example, drive tons of page views. So messaging apps, Twitter apps, and so on and so forth. People are using these apps all day long to send messages, receive messages, and it's just page views, page views, page views. Same thing with games. People play games for a very long time, so there's many, many, many opportunities to show them ads. So those are apps that tend to have a very high value per user. Some apps have, just by definition, they have less opportunity to show advertisements. So if you have an app that is the kind of app that you use to get a quick piece of information, you're probably only going to have one ad to show that person, and so you might have a lower value per user. Then again, if you can get a lot of users, you can compensate for that. So it's just a framework for thinking about the type of app that you have and how you're going to grow this value of that app. But of course, one goal should always be get as many users as possible, and that's also something that we try to help with. So the complication with getting a lot of users is that app stores are really, really crowded. There's hundreds of thousands of apps in these stores, so how are you going to get noticed? We've done research showing that something like 98% of people, the way that they find the apps that they download is they go into the app store on their phone and they just kind of browse. And of course, when you go into the App Store and you browse, what are you browsing? You're browsing most likely the top 50 free apps. Maybe you look into a specific category, but even there, you're also looking at the top 20 apps in that category. And so you're going to see maybe 50 to 100 apps, and they're only going to be the top ones. And you're not going to find any of the other 200,000 apps unless you are explicitly searching for those, which doesn't happen nearly as much as just casual browsing. So basically, if you want to get a lot of users, it needs to be your goal to get up into that place where you're going to be much more discoverable, where it's much easier to find you. And so that's something that we help do through mobile advertising as well. Basically, what we allow publishers to do through the same set of tools that we allow them to monetize their sites through, or their apps through, is place advertisements for their apps on our network of other apps. So in this example, Battle Bears is a game that was developed by one of the developers we work with. They created an ad, which you see in the top left there. It has a little picture of a bear, and it says, "Play Battle Bears, free download." It's a very easy ad to create. We actually scrape the image from their app tile, and they just provide 35 characters of text, so extremely easy. We show these ads across our network. When someone clicks on an ad, it takes them directly to the App Store page to download the app. This is an example on iPhone, but it's the exact same thing on Android. And then someone can choose to install the app or not. We've shown over time that this is an extremely effective model, and we've used it with thousands and thousands of apps. This is just a small sampling of the apps that we've done this with. And here's a typical result that you can see from this kind of campaign. We did an app promotion campaign for a local app called Radio Skull, which was produced by an app production house called Aorta. And basically what we try to do is run as many ads as possible within 3 or 4 days. And what that does is it creates a lot of downloads per day, which means that then the App Store algorithms start to increase your rank because you look like a hot app when you're getting that many downloads. If you start increasing your rank and you start getting up into the top 100, the top 50, well, those people, when they're browsing their phones, they start finding you a lot more. And so then they start downloading you more. So just by getting up there to begin with, you're going to get up even higher just from that organic boost effect. And you can see that that's what happened here. Before the campaign, they were getting a very small number of downloads per day. On the right axis there, you can see they were probably getting maybe 30 downloads per day. And then as we increased their rank, which is on the left side there, and we got them as high as number 10 in the App Store, they were getting up to 1,200 downloads a day. So if you want to build users, this is a great way to do so. And by the way, as the app stores grow, being number 10 is definitely not 1,200 downloads per day anymore. It's a much larger number because there are that many more users, that many more apps in the App Store. So to be number 10 takes a lot more downloads per user. In other words, the opportunity to acquire users is huge. Finally, one last thing you can do to drive downloads of your products is to cross-promote them. So if you have more than one app, our tools allow you to use a free functionality called house ads. So if I am the publisher of Strike Knight and Ninja Jump and I'm coming out with a new app called Buganoids, I can actually, for free, put advertisements for Buganoids within my existing apps. And that's a way to cross-promote my new apps to my existing users. It's completely free to the publisher, and it allows you to build on the strength of your audience creation. So the more audience you create, it's a virtuous cycle. And this is a free functionality in our tool. So when you combine all of these strategies, you can build a really strong business. This is one example of a publisher we work with in the US called Backflip Studios, who is on our advertising earning $100,000 a month. And they're doing this, plus in-app purchases, plus upgrades to paid versions. And there's no reason why developers down here can't make the same kind of income. Earlier I showed the number of unique users and the number of page views in Brazil. There's no reason why you have to have your app promoted only in Brazil. You can develop an app that can be promoted in the app stores in the US and in Europe as well. So this sort of thing is completely feasible. And in fact, this is just one of the actually many developer companies who are making this kind of money right now with iPhone and Android apps. So I encourage everyone to just give our tools a shot on AdMob.com. We have really good reporting and analytics so that you can track your performance in real time. You can log in whenever you want and see how much money you're making on a given day. You can break it down by geography. You can design a custom dashboard. It's a very good set of tools for understanding how your business is running. And this is how you would do that. Just check out AdMob.com where you can create an account. Our SDKs are there. You can just download them for free. And these links down here, we will take you to Help Center and wikis where you could get help on installing them. So that's it. I tried to make it quick. I hope it was interesting.